Hello and welcome to Base Creative's video series Success Through Lockdown, where each week I look far and wide for some of the more unsung entrepreneurial superheroes who've overcome lockdown and are ready to share their ideas with me. Last week we had Caroline Banks and Matt Dukes, who showed us a new innovative platform called the V Art Show and how it brings artists and art buyers together in real time, all in the comfort of their own home. You can see that interview on the Base Creators website now. Earlier this week, when my hair and my clothes were different, I spoke with Ben Corbett, the marketing and content manager for in-person events company F2F Events. Almost overnight, when the UK's face-to-face events for the foreseeable had to be cancelled or postponed, Ben had to pivot their entire communications. But he had a cunning plan to keep their community and their followers happy, all using social media. Let's find out how. Okay, I'm joined by Ben Corbett from F2F Events. Ben, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks a lot for inviting me for a chat.
It's my pleasure. So a lot of people have been asking and are certainly curious about how events companies are surviving during lockdown. What was your reaction when you knew we were going into lockdown and you didn't know when we were going to be coming out?
Well, I mean, I think essentially, really, we'd have to say our first reaction was concern. I mean, it's the equivalent of Jack Daniels being told you're going into prohibition, because effectively we've got tens of thousands of consumers coming to our events, huge events. The biggest allergy and free from show in Europe, at least, perhaps the world, and that's been made illegal essentially for a certain amount of months. So yeah, it was a big concern for us, but also it required for us to act quickly, start rearranging our shows, postponing, finding times when based on assumptions, because that's all we really have at this point. I'm not going to use the unprecedented word because it's been used enough, but obviously none of us really know what's going to happen. So yes. Financial planning, organization based on assumptions. We were looking at 4 months with zero revenue. So even cash flow, stuff like that, rearranging sales and marketing strategies. It wasn't a time to stop, that's for sure. It was a time for action, really.
So you got two flagship events, that's right. And when were those events due to be on?
Okay, so we do a number of events, F2F. We have 5 over the year that are big ones, and there's 2 brands within those events, which is Just V Show, which is our vegan, vegetarian, plant-based show, and the Allergy and Free From Show, which is free from allergy food and products and stuff like that. And we had our biggest shows coming up, which were in London in July at the Excel Centre. So yes, they were coming up in July of this summer. Yeah.
And how many people would they normally attract?
We're looking at 35 to 40,000 people, okay, at least. I mean, it's a 3-day event, and yeah, tens of thousands of people.
So it was that kind of number that you had to let down essentially and say, look, it's not happening. What was their reaction?
I mean, luckily for us, I think everyone was really understanding at that time. And the fact that we could say to them that we have acted quickly, we've secured a time that we believe we're going to be able to run the show in October, as opposed to saying you can't come to and see us this year, I think meant a lot to people. Yeah. I think in all truth, especially early on, I know things are starting to open up a little bit now. I don't think people wanted to come out and mix at that time. So I think people welcomed the news that they weren't going to have to make that difficult decision for themselves, and that they were still going to have an opportunity to come to our shows, because a lot of people rely on them. We've got some vulnerable people, particularly within the allergy community, that rely on the information and the access to products that we provide.
Right. So like many events though, a lot of the revenue is going to come from exhibitors, sponsors, and those people, obviously now there's not a show going on, so the revenue stopped. What was the kind of response from exhibitors and sponsors then?
I mean, because our shows are so big, we work with a huge sort of variety of people. I think lucky for us in some ways, working in the food sector predominantly means that there's still demand for food. So our exhibitors, on the most part, are still running businesses, and I think that's a good thing. Obviously, for us, it's a good thing
Yeah.
for them. But we have a range from sort of mum and pop stores to huge companies, the biggest in free from and in vegan vegetarian. And I think that the other side of it is that our visitors that provide the income to those businesses, they don't have a choice on still using those brands, because if you have an allergy or something like that, you can't compromise on what you eat. If you've become vegan or vegetarian based on ethical or moral reasons, again, you're not going to compromise on what you eat.
Yeah, sure.
So although there was a palpable atmosphere of nervousness, I would say, particularly at the beginning, but that was the case for every company. And perhaps priorities were maybe focused on immediate and short-term goals, getting through the next few months. We weren't particularly worried about the majority of our partners and customers and exhibitors going out of business as such, I would say.
Okay. And then I suppose it's the kind of $64,000 question. What do events companies doing? What is F2F doing now that we're in lockdown? How have you guys managed to stay relevant and also keep loyalty within your visitor base?
I think that, yeah, that is the key question, and that's the first thing, as you know, leading the marketing department, that I thought about. And interestingly, just before lockdown began, I sat down with my company director and the CEO, and I said, I would like to sort of change our marketing strategy a little bit and move to more content-based marketing. So rather than just saying, when the show's here, this is what's going to be happening, book your tickets. I wanted to move to make our social media channels and our website a central hub for the allergy free from world on the Just Be side, a central hub for vegan, vegetarian, plant-based world. And part of being in a small team that runs really, really big events is that you don't necessarily have the time to make those changes. And really, I don't want to call it an opportunity as such, because obviously there's been so many horrible things going on in the world as a result. I think it would be sort of insensitive to say that,
Mm-hmm.
but it did give me time, and it gave me just the room to look at providing something for the community that's not necessarily directly related to the show, which I think actually develops a stronger relationship between us and our visitors. So what we started doing was running a weekly live show that we put out on Facebook and YouTube called two of them, the Allergy and Free From Show Chat and Just V Show Chat. And just when we're at our shows, as well as the exhibitors, we have content theatres. So people come and they listen to talks and stuff like that. And what we're effectively doing is bringing those online. So I was having a couple of people interviewed every week, one for each show, and people just came and watched and talked in the comments. And you know, people that are often shielding and stuff like that due to their severe allergies or other medical issues were able to come watch the show, chat to each other while they watch the show, and engage with people that way without always shoving the show, the live event in their faces. You know what I mean? Just say, come and have time to engage with us.
All right, this is interesting then. So the model has shifted. You're now kind of the channel is now digital rather than in person. You're still delivering the great content that visitors would otherwise come to the face-to-face shows for. How is your kind of revenue model adapted to just doing digital versions of the shows?
I think that when we're talking revenue, we're talking still about potential in terms of digital and online. we are still running our show. It's been pushed back, but I think to make those shows successful, I think it's important for our customers and our exhibitors to remain engaged with us and to see that they can trust us and that we will make the right decisions and we know what we're doing. And I think that by doing the live shows and by staying engaged, not only with the visitors but with brands as well, we have been able to show them that they can trust us and we're going to make those right decisions. Equally, we have had people get in contact with us to say, we might be interested in sponsorship opportunities, because we have that for our show. You can sponsor a learning theatre, or you can have overall sponsorship, and this is another string to our bow in terms of sponsorship. But it's something we're growing. We've got sort of 12 to 14,000 views a week. Our click through and our watch through is good. It's kept registrations up as well. People have still been registering for the show just from having that contact with us.
The in-person
So I
show.
think, yeah, exactly. The event. I would say that it's not a direct revenue stream, but it's definitely feeding into keeping our event that we're doing later on this year and at the forefront of people's minds.
So it's about staying relevant during lockdown, so that when the face-to-face shows do come back, they're fresh and in the forefront of your visitors and the brands and sponsors' minds. Do you think this is going to stay there? Is something you'd like to keep, maybe in between the shows?
We undoubtedly will. It's been, when I started it, I wasn't expecting it to be as big as it is, if I'm honest. My main priority at the start was I want to stay engaged with our visitors without talking about the show at a time when talking about the event might make them nervous at the beginning of lockdown. And immediately I had people that I've tried to get to come and speak at the live event contacting me and saying, can I come on your chat show? And as a result, I've had people that have been on The Apprentice. I've had people that have been on Bake Off. I've got a MasterChef winner coming in this week.
Wow.
People that historically have been, they're not easy people to book, to say, can you come and spend, a day down at an events centre somewhere in London or Birmingham or Glasgow. But to say, can you spend 20 minutes sitting at your computer in your kitchen, is actually a much easier sell. So we've sort of been able to engage with people that previously we might not have been able to, in terms of people that we can get in for content, which has been really good. And perhaps some of those relationships might lead to them coming to events now that we've spoken to them. So it's almost lead generating in some ways as well, which is something I wasn't expecting at all.
I do have one question. Normally I sort of ask what advice you would give your kind of pre-lockdown self. If you could step back in time, go back to early March. What I'm really interested in is what advice you would give other events companies who I'm sure who were thinking at the time, this is our only stream of revenue, is now just completely gone, as you said, like if you were selling alcohol during prohibition. But what would be the advice you might give other events companies who are currently still struggling and thinking how we can stay relevant?
I think that it's widely known amongst the event industry that one of the big flaws of being involved with the events is that you create a huge community like we have around allergy and plant-based, and then you don't see those people for a year. So you're a small team, you're working on a huge show, and your mind is always on what's next show, what's coming up next, what do I have to do now?
Yeah.
And then I'm leading into Glasgow and I haven't spoken to our London community for 6 months, for 9 months. And the thing that we really wanted to do, the thing that we've always talked about, the sort of the gold of what you can achieve, is being engaged with that community the entire time. And what happened in March was I had time, and we still have time, to have a clean slate, review everything, audit everything. What we were doing some brilliant, many brilliant things, but no one doesn't have time to improve what they're doing. And this was the opportunity to tweak, to work smarter, and to make sure that we're relevant and using all the tools that we have at our disposal. When you've been running a show for 8-10 years, just in terms of technology and the tools that you have to engage community, we haven't necessarily had time to sit down and look at those tools and figure out what we can use in terms of putting branding on screen and bringing in several people at the same time to talk about a topic on a live show. So yeah, I think I would have said to myself, you've got time to audit everything now, you've got time to look at everything. Yeah. I'd say to other people, this is an opportunity to find a way to be connected with your entire audience all year round. The tools are out there. You just need the time to explore them.
All right, cool, Ben. And if people want to find out more about the show, both the online version and the in-person in October, how can they do that?
So if you go to allergyshow.co.uk, you can book tickets for our London and Birmingham show. All our tickets are always free. So you can get there and you can book tickets for that. Justvshow.co.uk. Once again, we have a show coming up in London in October. Book tickets for that as well. Or just search for the Allergy and Free From Show on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or Just V Show on the same places. You can also catch the live chats on YouTube as well as Facebook. It goes out at the same time. So yeah, just look for us there. We're not difficult to find.
Super. Okay, great. Appreciate you spending time with me and giving some advice to our viewers as well. And it sounds like the October show is pretty much going ahead. So fingers crossed for that. Thanks for your time, Ben.
No worries. Cheers, Iain.
Cheers, then. Bye. Awesome. And another quick thanks to Ben and F2F for spending some time with me in that interview earlier this week. If you have comments, you have suggestions, or you have an opinion about what we've mentioned in this series, please do leave it in the comments, or you can get in touch with me. We've got a question for Ben. You can get in touch with him. Details on the screen in about 2 seconds time. Thanks very much for watching.